As the sequel to Borderlands, Borderlands 2 faced the monumental task of not just matching the original's surprise success, but surpassing it. Like any great sequel, it needed to refine everything that worked, expand on it, and ultimately cement Borderlands as a lasting franchise. After months of covering the concept art for every Vault Hunter you guys have voted for, I'm reworking that series to spotlight one of gaming's most memorable sequels, Borderlands 2. And a large part of why it's so memorable is its roster of Vault Hunters. So in this video, we're going to see how the game's 6 Vault Hunters evolved from concept to reality, and what exactly led up to them being some of the most beloved characters in the series. Part 0. Who or what is Zero? The blunt answer is, we don't know. Zero was intentionally designed to be mysterious from the very start, and the answer to that first question will likely never be explored any further. What I can show you are some early pieces of concept art that reveal his design origins. If Zero ever felt familiar, that's because he was officially inspired by other masked assassins from other bits of media, like Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe, Boba Fett from Star Wars, and Gray Fox from the Metal Gear series. These silent masked assassins shaped the foundation for Zero's sleek, clandestine design. But did you know that the wider development team at Gearbox really did not like Zero at first? A lot of people felt he was too sci-fi and didn't fit in with the broader Borderlands universe. It took a shit ton of effort and constant reiteration, and out of all the Vault Hunters for the sequel, Zero went through the most design changes. In order to bring him closer to the themes of Borderlands, his armor drew heavy inspiration from motorcycle and racing gear. The protective padding and sleekness of it all inspired his initial designs, and from there they were developed further, though they did keep a few motocross helmets around for later cosmetics. Now, the idea behind Zero's emote speak was that a fully obscured character like him wouldn't express normally. One developer has even gone on record to personally theorizing that Zero isn't even his actual name. Instead, the residents of Pandora named him that because every time he kills, the number 0 appears, making the symbol synonymous with him regardless of whether that's his actual name or not. And yeah, the East Asian touches like the Kalmoji and the katana are intentional but not definitive, if that makes any sense. By Borderlands 3, Zero's ties to Atlas allowed him to upgrade a bit. Not only did this include more armor plating, but hella pockets and straps. This new look reflects his high status as an assassin for Atlas, making him look even more professional than before. Part Axton. The former Doll Sergeant and Commando class in Borderlands 2, Axton was designed as the evolution of the original soldier class character, Roland. Unlike Roland, who grew into a more stoic, disciplined leader, Axton embodied that younger, slick, and more carefree spirit. He's a cutthroat soldier boy, yeah, but he'll do it with a polite little smirk. For fans of straightforward gunplay, Axton delivers the most grounded gameplay. But the trickiest part was creating a character that felt distinct enough from Roland while still communicating soldier. Early concepts swung one way, heavy and somewhat urban, while another was very obviously just Solid Snake. The breakthrough came when the team combined both retro and futuristic aesthetics. They wanted a visual middle ground, so they paired advanced tactical gear with a retro leather jacket with an off-center zipper, a nod to classic action heroes and adventurers. After a couple more designs using Hicks from Alien and Bruce Willis in Tears of the Sun as inspiration, this was Axton's final look, and it's pretty much what we got at release. But the most obvious difference is the head. The devs thought he looked kinda evil, so they drew for more heroic references like Sam Worthington and even Metro Man. Yes, Metro Man from the Megamind movie. Axton finally had a look that felt rugged and experienced, but one final touch was added so he didn't look like any other generic white video game soldier. The metal bars grafted onto his forehead not only make his face more visually distinct, but also served as a subtle piece of world building, hinting at his dull military background and rank as a sergeant. And instead of dog tags, Axton wears a wedding ring around his neck, a reminder that a piece of his heart still clings to the woman who broke it and saved him from being executed at the same time. Part Maya. When designing a new siren for Borderlands 2, Gearbox's goal was to come up with something completely original. One who looked and felt very different from Lilith while still maintaining the core identity of what it means to be a siren. Now, this contrast didn't just mean aesthetically, it defined the entirety of Maya's personality and abilities. Where Lilith was wild, impulsive, and casual, Maya was envisioned as clean, cool, and professional. Lilith's style leaned towards punk, Maya leaned towards sci-fi. Her final look features that light, sleek combat armor that signified her preference for mobility and precision. You can see that in her early designs, with that Samus Aran-like wetsuit being a major part of her initial identity. Some concepts featured more tactical elements, but the one that ultimately stuck was a combination of a tight upper body with a baggier lower half. The keywords guiding her look were sexy yet badass. While the tight suit and exposed hips added subtle sex appeal, her intellect and general badassery were meant to stand out even more. One of the things they really wanted to focus on with Maya was how she displayed her siren tattoos. Maya proudly shows off her entire right arm at all times, implying a deeper connection with who she is. The book at her side is a small detail with big implications. It suggests that Maya studies her powers, grounding her as a more academic, thoughtful counterpart to Lilith's more impulsive nature. The artists even went on record saying that they imagined her as the tall, slender European foil to Lilith's spunkier, wild child vibe. By Borderlands 3, Maya's evolved even more. Her monk attire and longer hair reflect her growth. She's no longer a novice, she's a master. Part Salvador. The iconic gunzerker of Borderlands 2, Salvador is the only character confirmed to be born and raised on Pandora, and that fact is crucial to his design. The creative team at Gearbox asked themselves what kind of person would grow up on Pandora. Would he be a thug, a rogue soldier, a revolutionary? Ultimately, Salvador was designed to feel unpredictable, violent yet charismatic, someone you might trust in a firefight but never fully let your guard down around. In fact, his personality was directly influenced by Jane Cobb from Firefly, unfiltered and constantly teetering between anti-hero and absolute psycho. But there are really two core concepts at the heart of Salvador's character design. The first is his identity as a native Pandoran, but the second is Gearbox's twist on the iconic fantasy race of the dwarves. So the question boils down to, what would the Borderlands series take on a fantasy dwarf be, and what would they look like in the gun-obsessed world of Pandora? For the Pandoran side of things, a lot of his qualities focus on guns. The row of bullets tattooed across his arm, the dual pistols strapped to his back, the bandoliers slung across his shoulders, all the way down to the fucking bullet-tipped and saw-bladed spurs on the back of his shoes. For the dwarf side, the devs wanted to flip the script on the big guy trope. In the first game, we had Brick, tall and all muscle. But for Borderlands 2, they went for a little big guy. While designed to be short and stocky, Salvador would make up for it with his massive arsenal and crash-out mentality. Fusing those two tropes together, his concept art took inspiration from some unexpected but surprisingly fitting sources, one of which was Wolverine, who shares that same small but fucking insane demeanor as Salvador. Some of Salvador's concepts even directly reference Wolverine's hair, with a little bit of Kazuya from Tekken thrown in there as well. Oh, and Steven Van Zandt was also name dropped as a reference. As for his class design, he was meant to teach players what the Borderlands series is all about, and his concept art reflects the process of how much they refined that idea. At first, he was called the Merc, so he took on more of a mercenary look, then the Gunslinger, but ultimately they landed on the Gunzerker. So Salvador is the product of a world with no rules, designed not just to survive Pandora, but to embody everything it stands for. And that's what makes him the truest representation of what Borderlands really is. Part Gaige. Gaige, the Necromancer, the first ever DLC character in Borderlands history, stands out from the series' usual Vault Hunter formula with her big-tailed techno-anarchist design. And while public concept art is limited, there is, alongside this death trap artwork, only a single piece of early Gaige concept art. This sketch looks relatively similar to her final design, a scrappy, energetic teen genius with a punk edge. But a keen eye will notice a key difference right away: her robot arm. In this version, it was originally much more crude and only had 4 digits. But in the final release, her arm is a bit more streamlined and sleek, replaced herself in order to summon Death Trap more easily. So if all we were talking about were her early visuals, then that'd be it. However, there was some controversy. The issue arose when the lead designer repeatedly referred to a skill tree as girlfriend mode during an interview. One of Gaige's skill trees, Best Friends Forever, was designed to help newer players ease into the game, with skills like Close Enough, which lets missed shots ricochet toward enemies. It was an accessibility-focused approach, similar to Tails' inclusion in Sonic 2 for those less experienced, like a younger sibling. But referring to it as girlfriend mode implies that women, by default, don't know how to play games and need a watered-down version to keep up with their boyfriends. Intentionally or not, it reduced that accessibility to a gendered stereotype. It got so bad that Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford had to go out on Twitter stating Borderlands 2 does not have a girlfriend mode, which out of context does sound kind of funny. She did play a role in Borderlands 3's DLC, but there's no concept art available for me to sink my teeth in, unfortunately. But Gaige remains one of the series' most bold characters. Spunky, chaotic, brilliant, and kind of a girly girl. It's just that the initial framing deserved the same care and respect that the concept and its potential players deserved. Part Krieg. Spring 2010. Gearbox developers were tasked with brainstorming future class ideas on a whiteboard. Entries included Barber, Farmer, Combat Mortician, and interestingly, Psycho. And after a round of cuts, the Psycho class made it into the top 10. From those 10, the devs were encouraged to pitch action skills. And one early idea for the Psycho was Psychotic Fit, a skill that boosted damage and speed while drawing in enemy attention. Activating it again would trigger an explosion and down you, forcing the player to rely on skill tree upgrades to fight for your life. While reminiscent of what became Krieg's Light Diffuse, the pitch itself drew mixed reactions. The idea of a playable Psycho was intriguing, but there were concerns about it being too bizarre, and the team wanted to stick with generally safer options for the core 4. And so the idea of a playable Psycho wasn't shelved, but it was benched. But after Gaige's release, the devs saw players embracing the more out there mechanics. Knowing the Psycho would release 8 months later, they felt more confident in designing a new character for those who've stuck around. So another skill pitch was made, Pyromania. Krieg would light himself on fire and equip a throwable flaming buzz axe. But Krieg's relationship with fire as a core part of his kit caused some balance issues, so while the axe remained, the fire element was instead moved over to the Hellborn skill tree. With progress on gameplay being made, the devs had to flesh out his personality. Initially, the team leaned into him being a 100% pure Psycho, but they realized it lacked individuality. What separated Krieg from other Psychos? They had to make a change. And so, Krieg's inner voice was introduced, a remnant of his sanity that guides his rage in the right direction. At first, the inner voice was rude and condescending, but this was scrapped for a more nuanced and introspective take. The end result was something more emotionally in-depth, a careful balance to the insanity. And since then, Krieg has been a smash hit with players, quickly becoming a fan favorite. So for his Borderlands 3 design, not much changed. His gas mask took on a more skeletal look, and his buzz axe became slightly more refined, but generally, Krieg was still Krieg, a raging psycho with a flicker of conscience buried deep, deep inside. And that's the full design story behind every Borderlands 2 Vault Hunter. The design and personality references some of these characters drew from were honestly very surprising to me, and it's wild how some characters went through so many changes before landing on the final version. It really shows how much experimentation, heart, and history went into building this roster, and I think it really paid off. But that's gonna be it. Thank you for watching, stay safe, stay sly, goodbye.